Katherine McNamara, welcome inside the Crazy Ant Farm. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm pretty well. How about you guys?
Oh, we're doing awesome.
Fantastic.
Doing awesome. Congratulations, first of all, on a huge year. I mean, you have just absolutely been killing it all year long.
Thank you.
You're welcome in the crossover. Oh, my goodness. That's so awesome that you were involved in that. So we're going to talk all about that kind of stuff because we've just got so much to ask you about the two huge shows that you're a part of. But what we like to do first is kind of introduce you to the listeners a little bit and tell them a little bit about your background and how you got started in the industry and everything, because it wasn't something you really wanted to do at first, right? Your plans were in another direction, right?
Yeah, I had very different plans for my life, but happily ended up here. I loved math as a kid, and then eventually as I started going through school and learning about the different subjects, I discovered the real-life application of mathematics through economics. And just the fact that, the puzzle of math could be applied to the greater world to explain these different, topics and these different phenomena and things like this.
Oh, absolutely.
Ultimately, I was able to just discover a whole new world in that sense, and decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. So my plan was to become an economist, and particularly in developmental economics. And then I was a dancer as a kid, and was the kid who would try anything. So I ran into a family friend who was directing a community theater show and needed a dancer. So I said, sure, why not? Sounds like fun. And ultimately I had one of those rare moments of clarity when I stepped on stage. And from that moment on, I never had a doubt in my mind that I was put on this earth to tell stories.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, it's crazy how it works, right? You think you have this set plan, you think you know what you're out to do, and all of a sudden, no, it changes, right?
It's very interesting. The more people I talk to in this industry, no matter what part of the industry they're in, be they actors or directors or writers or whatever it is, we all stumble into this somehow. Some of us more directly than others, but ultimately there's a moment where we all realize that, we belong in the crazy carnival that is the entertainment industry.
Right, I like that.
I love that crazy carnival. And it was young for you. I mean, we should applaud you. By the way, you speak of education and stuff. Graduated high school at 14, college at 17, and do you have the master's yet? I know you were working on the master's, right?
I don't have it yet. I was working on it, and then Shadowhunters got very intense, and then I jumped into Arrow. So I've taken a little bit of a sabbatical.
Completely understandable.
I'm getting back to it now.
Well, congrats on that. I think education is a wonderful thing, and it's so nice to see somebody accomplished like that. And I mean, the world needs more of that. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that, my whole family's in science and medicine. So education has always been a huge priority, and it's something that I've always loved. And I give that love, the inspiration for that love as a credit to my family and to my very first teacher, who saw this kind of spark and love for learning in me, and she fostered it. So it's something I've carried with me.
Oh, wow, that's great. I mean, and what was that like, telling your family that you wanted to kind of take a different direction with your life to go on with acting and the arts rather than the finance side?
Well, I was 12.
Yeah.
They just kind of said, well, sure, kid. Do whatever you want, as long as you stay in school and go to college and do all of that, so you have a plan for your life if this doesn't work. But they were very supportive and really allowed me to do whatever I want and follow my heart. It was very sweet, because a lot of them are in, obviously more clinical fields and don't necessarily understand the entertainment industry. And
right.
My mom in particular, when I first started, she would check in with me every couple weeks and go, are you sure you're still having fun with this? You're still enjoying this, right?
Just making sure you're good. Yeah.
Completely
understand. We have so
understand.
many kids that didn't love what they were doing, but were doing it just because it's what they always had done.
Right.
And she wanted to make sure that I was doing it and didn't feel like I had to do it at any point, which I actually really appreciate.
Absolutely, and completely understandable. She didn't understand. There's a lot of people in the industry that don't understand the industry, so I mean...
Well, I'm still trying to figure it out.
And you say, it's so funny you said 12, because, man, you were really, young when you started. 13 when you made your Broadway debut. Wow, that's impressive. Your professional Broadway debut, right?
Yeah, that actually happened quite by accident as well. I always say that I've just kind of followed whatever opportunities have stumbled onto my path and just seen where they take me. Because that happened, I worked with a woman in Kansas City who was from New York, and she went off to do this show, Little Night Music, and they ended up needing an immediate replacement in the show, and she was kind enough to say, hey, there's this girl in Kansas City that I worked with that might be right for this. So I get a random phone call saying, hey, do you want to come audition for this Broadway show with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Angela Lansbury in 2 days?
Wow.
And I'd never been to New York, so I said, well, sure. And I'd love to see New York and go audition for a Broadway show, just to say I've done that once in my life.
That's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Angela Lansbury and Catherine Zeta-Jones, like 13, and that's who you're like auditioning to go work. That's it's so insane.
And then a week later, I was living in New York working with them. And, you know, 6
goodness.
months later, they left the show, and Bernadette Peters and Elaine Stritch came in. So,
Wow.
you know, within a year of my life, before I'm 15 years old, I'm working with 4 legends, leading ladies of, you know, theater and film, and it's just bonkers.
Yeah, seriously. And I mean, especially being that young with those, like, A-list people, did they pass on any advice to you, especially being that young? I can imagine so, right?
Quite a bit. Even just in observing them, I learned so much, because they were all so different, but also commanding in the way that they worked and the way that they interacted with everyone, and they were just the most kind and gracious and wonderful human beings. But, you know, I learned different things from each of them. I spent the most time probably with Angela and with Elaine, because most of my scenes were with them. And just sitting in their dressing room between scenes and listening to their stories and asking their advice. And, you know, Elaine used to take me to the set of 30 Rock on Mondays when the theater was dark. And it was so much fun to watch these, you know, women that had been in the industry for decades and go, yeah, when I'm in my 80s and 90s, I want to be doing 8 shows a week on Broadway. You know,
well, and
it can be done.
Absolutely, and we should mention you're also a musician and songwriter. You play the piano and the guitar. So Broadway and being on stage and musicals, I'm guessing that would be something I could see in your future without doubt.
Definitely.
Oh, for sure. You know, it's funny because I started in theater in Kansas City and then going to Broadway. I feel more at home on a stage than I do pretty much anywhere else.
That's okay. And I got to ask though, because 13, and I really want to get into this a little bit because there's a lot of our listeners that are trying to get into the industry, and so we always kind of like to talk about stuff relevant to that. And you have been very successful to make the transition kind of from a young age into young adult and avoid the pitfalls, if you will, or the dark side of the industry a little bit. Talk a little bit about that and how you've been able to do that, because I think it's dangerous sometimes for children that get into it and they get caught up in all of the drama and everything. How have you been able to avoid that?
Actually, I'm really glad you asked this because I've seen it happen. And I've been witness to it. People I know, good friends of mine, things happen in this industry. It's wonderful and it's glossy and it's fabulous and it's glamorous, but it also has a dark side. And I think that's something that's very important to remember. You know, if you love this for the work and if you love it for the time and the effort that it takes and the blood, sweat, and tears that you pour into every project, that will carry you through. And I think that's largely what carried me through is I'm here for the work, and I'm here to create things and to tell stories, and, you know, not necessarily to get involved in anything else. And I also have been very lucky to be surrounded by people that are there to remind me who I am and to remind me why I'm here. And, you know, I do the same for them. If you try and surround yourself with real people who are genuine and honest and authentic, which is harder to do sometimes than others in this industry.
Sure. Imagine.
But you have to constantly check yourself on, you know, the people you're surrounding yourself with and the situations you're getting yourself into and why you're doing what you're doing. And if you remain focused on the creative pursuit and on the work and on sort of genuine, authentic people and people that make you feel good about yourself and not people who tear you down or people who tell you have to be something you're not. And I think so often people get caught up in trying to be what they think they're supposed to be, and they lose that spark of what makes them special and that reason they began and that thing that inspired their passion to begin with. And you know, if you surround yourself with people that are there for you and who love you for who you are, not, you know, what they think you can do for them, that's the key.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we hear time and time and again from a lot of our guests, like, it's all about having a really good support system in this industry that's filled with rejection. I mean, we hear all the time, it's like 90% auditioning and 10% actually acting and being on set. So who would you Who would you say is your biggest supporter in your circle?
I would say that my family is my biggest support. You know,
Awesome.
I'm very, very lucky to. I have an amazing family full of a lot of women who have been adept at balancing career and family. So I grew up with these women who are scientists and nurses and doctors and professors and all of these incredible things, but they were also mothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and grandmothers, and these people that the way they presented life to me, it was never a question of career or family. It was always, yeah, you're going to have to work hard and it's not always going to be easy, but if you really want something, you can make it work.
Absolutely. Women empowerment.
Yeah, seriously.
It's so good to hear because
and that to me was always so inspiring, and you know, they've continued to support me in that as well, and yet, you know, they give me more trouble about things that I do than anyone else, and remind me that I'm still just that little kid from Missouri, and I love them for that.
Oh, that's so awesome. I think your mentality, though, of the way you just said and the way you approach things and how you did it, it had to play heavily, because let's jump into this stuff. You have now been associated with 2 projects where fandom is involved, and the hype and the hugeness of these things. I have to imagine the mentality that you had helped immensely going into that, because I could see where that could spiral out of control for some people and maybe be a little overwhelming for some. Let's talk Shadowhunters.
Yes, please.
Talk about some pressure, right? I mean, the movie kind of came out and it didn't do so well, and they were supposed to have a sequel, and then they didn't, and they're like, hey, let's reboot this for a TV series, and then you find out, sure, we're going to do that, and we're going to do it right on the edge of Freeform, you know, the name brand change, and it's going to be the first series announced on the new Freeform. Had to be a lot of pressure, right?
It was certainly, I wouldn't necessarily say pressure, but it was definitely responsibility.
There you go.
You know, I grew up loving young adult fiction and just books in general as a method of storytelling. So I knew how much kids attach to these characters, and I know that feeling when you have this character that you just love and this world that you're obsessed with, and just you want to see it come to life so badly.
Right.
And it's difficult to do sometimes because reading is such a personal experience, and your own imagination feeds so much into what you see when you read a book. And there's no way we can have an infinite number of experiences for people as they do when they read the books. So we were really conscious in creating this series and trying to find a way to honor the source material and really create a world that fans would respond to, but also make enough changes to give them a fresh perspective on these characters in the show, so that even if they'd read the book a million times, they could sort of have a new experience and a way that they could get excited and be surprised by things.
Right.
And I give a huge credit to the fandom, because they were so welcoming to us and so accepting, and they were willing to trust us with this story that they love so much and come on the journey with us.
Yeah, the Shadow fam is huge, right? And I mean, because they can, you're like you said, that they are very intent on what they believe the character should be. So casting is so crucial in these things, I think, and the concern that you guys have of pulling off these characters accurately for the fandom. I think you guys all did a brilliant job on that series. It took off. I mean, it was a massive hit the first season. It was huge, and it did go over really well with fandom. And I think that has a lot to do with yourself and your fellow castmates because of the passion you showed each week on that show. I think it was just brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, that cast, that crew, the fandom as well, it really is a family. But, the cast and crew in particular, I've never been a part of a production where every single department and every single person is so passionate about the story that we're telling and about collaborating with each other and pushing each other to be better every day and to make a show that's really special, because we love to tell stories. And that was such a fun environment to be a part of, and such a creative space. And those are my boys, those are my brothers, and I love them to death. And I did that show from the time I was 19 to the time I was 23.
Right.
I feel like I really grew up on that set. That's such a transformative period of a person's life, and I was so lucky to be surrounded by so many people that were creative and wonderful people in that sense, but also just great human beings. But truly, in telling the story, we all had our own path with it, but we each were really committed. And some of us read all the books like I did, and, other people found other routes of really connecting with their characters. And it was amazing to watch everybody come together to create this story.
What was the audition process like? Was it pretty extensive? I mean, was it a cast pretty wide to find the right people for these roles?
It was long. It was very long. And, but rightly so. It makes a big difference. But I remember going through this process, and I'm pretty sure they saw every girl between the ages of 15 and 35 for this character.
Wow.
Because I was in those rooms with all of them. But it was interesting as it got down to it. When I first read the pilot for the show, it's a lot of projects. When I read them, there is, as you said, so much rejection, and part of the fun of auditioning for me is the spontaneity of it. So you create a character for a little bit, and then you forget about it. You go, I go in the room, I do the work. That's my little performance in the audition, and then you have to let it go, because if it's meant for you, it comes back to you, and if not, there's something else out there, and it wasn't meant to be. But with this, there's certain projects you read, and you go, this one's mine. I have to fight for this one. There's something in me that's telling me that I have to do this. And as soon as I read the pilot for Shadowhunters, I instantly connected with Clary. I knew what I wanted to do with her. I knew the potential for growth and where I wanted to take her. And I just saw it. And there was something in me that went, okay, this I have to do. I cannot take no for an answer on this. And, Dom Sherwood, who played Jace on the show, he and I had been friends before, any of Shadowhunters happened. And when I read the pilot, I couldn't help but go, gosh, Dom would be so good for Jace. Well, and then Dom was cast.
Right.
And I went, well, okay, now I have to do this.
Exactly.
Because there's no other way that this is, this is going to work in the world, because it's meant to be. And it turned out it was. And little things like that kept happening. I walked into the audition room one day, and I was in the audition process with Alberto Rosende, who played Simon Lewis. They were doing Simons and Clarys at the same time. And I walked into the room, and I looked around, and I saw Alberto for the first time and went, well, there's Simon Lewis. Jeez, they
Nice.
found a better guy if they tried. They made him in a lab. And it turned out, he and I started chatting and instantly had this kind of banter. And all these little things just ended up falling into place. And, I can't help but think that there was some kind of universal force guiding this show. Oh,
absolutely. And 19, and you're going for the lead. I mean, you knew you were reading for her, correct?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. No, I knew full well, and it was daunting, I have to say. When you're coming into a show and you go, all right, well, I'm in this position where I'm, sort of the Harry Potter of this world.
Definitely.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out, and I do give a lot of credit to, the cast really bonded together as a whole, and we had some really incredible, really seasoned people. We had Isaiah Mustafa, who's been in this industry forever.
Oh, yeah.
And Harry Shum Jr., who had just been through Glee. And the two of them really, I would have coffee with one or both of them a couple times a month, just outside of work, and go, okay, I have all these questions. How do I handle these situations? What am I doing? What do I need to be doing? Just to help me out here. And, I really, they've been such great mentors to me throughout this process.
That is fantastic. And so it wraps up, and you step right into your next fandom. It's like, with Arrow. I gotta ask. We were both curious. We were talking about this before you called in, and we were interested because we've had a lot of Marvel stars on, and we know that their casting process is like this uber secretive. You're ushered into a room, you have no idea what you're reading for, kind of a thing. Was it that same way with the DC side of it? Did you know what you were reading for when you went in for Arrow, or who you were reading for? What was the casting on that one like?
So it was very interesting because I had just found out that Shadowhunters had been canceled, and I was sort of in the mourning process for that, as well as having fun auditioning again. And Arrow was maybe my second audition back from not being able to audition for anything, really.
Right.
And so I was just getting into it and starting to have fun, really diving into things. And I get this audition, and David Rappaport, who's the casting director, I've known him for a long time. He's really incredible. I sent it over, and they're like, look, we've been looking for this character for a while. She's this, badass rookie cop who has a dark past, but it really has a lot of spunk and attitude, and we really think, we want to find somebody special because she's going to have an arc on the show and maybe, have a future there. And I said, okay, great. Well, I've been playing a superhero. Now let me go into the world of Arrow and play a cop.
Sure,
That's very different and interesting. And so I go in and I read the scenes with Beth and some of the showrunners, and, I'm sitting there. We have a lovely little conversation. I was sick as well because I'd just come back from a Comic-Con in Australia and had lost my voice.
Oh, that's never good.
So I had no voice really, and I was trying to do this audition, and, we play with the scenes and have a lot of fun, and then I leave, and a couple weeks later, I find out that I'm cast in it and that I've gotten the part. I'm like, great, awesome, rookie cop. Let me start doing research about, the training that cops go through.
Sure.
And the kind of education they have, and just so I know the mindset and the purview, and I'm, talking to my uncle who's a state trooper and trying to, get all of this information. Then I get a call from Beth Schwartz.
Yeah, not so much a cop, right?
No, she calls me and she goes, hey, Kat, so nice to meet you. Congratulations. We're so happy to have you on the show. By the way, everything you know is a lie. Her name's not Jessie or whatever it was. She's not a rookie cop. We don't really know what her name's going to be yet. We don't know a lot about her, but we just wanted to let you know that you're Oliver and Felicity's kid.
Oh
man.
Yeah.
I'm going, wait, hold on. I'm what now?
Yeah. I can only imagine. And then, of course, Stephen and Emily have spent so much time building these characters, and they're so, beloved and now you find out, oh, man, I'm their kid. How am I going to fall into that?
Exactly.
Because, I will say, though, great casting, because if Emily and Stephen were to have a kid, you would be it. I think the casting was brilliant.
It's very eerie, and yes, you're exactly right, because of course once, Twitter got hold of it and once they started to figure it out, there are all these fan edits that come out of me edited between Stephen and Emily, and or pictures of photo shoots that Emily and I have done that are somewhat similar, and Emily and I used to talk about it all the time, how eerie it is how much we look alike and how much I look like, the combination of the two of them.
It really is.
I take it as a compliment because they're both extremely attractive individuals. But, going back to finding out the news, with Shadowhunters, we had Malik, which was our, Magnus and Alec, and Harry Chum Jr. and Matt Dario had this couple on the show.
Right.
That ran like wildfire.
Yep.
But Felicity was always in that same realm when anybody was talking about fandom ships, as the kids say.
Absolutely.
And so I knew how beloved Felicity was, and I knew sort of the work that Stephen and Emily had put in and the love that it had been creating that relationship and those characters. So immediately I said, all right, well, I'm watching at the time 6 seasons of Arrow just so I can glean whatever I can of mannerisms and character qualities and what their relationship really was and sort of the intricacies of what their child could be.
Sure.
And that was pretty much the education that I needed because it gave me so much. I mean, there's so much in those characters to kind of mine, and then with the backstory that the showrunners gave me and the welcome that Stephen and Emily gave me when I got to set, it really was a dream of a process.
That's okay. I'm glad you said that. The welcome because what's it like? I sometimes I can imagine it would be pretty rough, and then like you just said, you were welcomed with open arms, and coming into a show that's 7 years in and so established and has such a fandom. I mean, I would imagine that's got to be something a little bit nervous to go into, right? And it's got to help that they were welcoming.
100%. I mean, it sort of feels like the transfer student coming into the senior year of high school. The family's so established and everybody gets along so well, and there's already a system, and people are so used to working with each other. You really don't know what you're stepping into. And I remember I was on set for some fittings and a hair and makeup meeting, and I stepped into the hair and makeup trailer, and Steven was in there. And I don't know how much you guys have seen of Arrow, but there's an episode in the prison in season 7 that it's entirely a fight scene, and Steven just gets beat up the entire episode. And he equally kicks butt back.
Of course.
As is the case with Arrow, the heroes get hit in the face as much as they hit other people in the face. which I love. I
Sure.
think it's amazing, and it's one of my favorite things about the show. But I walked into the trailer, and Steven was there getting more blood put on his face or something or other. And, he was clearly exhausted and had been at it all day. As soon as he saw me, he immediately jumped out of the chair, ran over, gave me a huge hug, and goes, "I'm your dad!" Took me around set and introduced me to everyone and just instantly made me feel as though I belonged there.
That's great.
And that was the best way to kind of start my journey with Arrow.
Oh, that's a great story and it's good to hear because in season 7, there wasn't supposed to be a season 8. I mean, he was ready to go and ready. I mean, so to hear him so enthusiastically jump up and be excited and have such passion for it still going into season 7 is great to hear. Let's talk about that for a little bit. I mean, the entire Arrowverse is built on this guy's shoulders.
Yeah.
Like, it's true.
I mean, so that's got to be like just this unbelievable feeling that this man has to see everything playing out the way it's played out.
Yeah, it's really been amazing. I didn't get to work with him much in season 7, given that I was 20 years in the future.
Exactly.
But I got to work with him a lot in season 8, and having done Shadowhunters for 4 years, I've been in his position, and I know what it's like to have to carry that kind of workload and
sure
play host to directors and guest stars and people, and just sort of, when you're in that position, you feel responsible for everyone's well-being as well, and you set the tone for set. So I really appreciate how he kind of ran things and the respect that he gave everyone and the attention to detail that he gave to the show.
Oh, absolutely.
It was such a joy to work with him because he really does care about the show and really wants it to be the best it can possibly be and has a level of taste that kind of exceeds most people that have been doing shows for as long as he has.
Sure. And were you super excited to find out you were going to be in the crossover, the big Crisis event?
Oh, I was so excited. And actually, the way I found out is because the wardrobe designer came up to me and goes, "Hey, we need to schedule a fitting for you at the leather shop." And I said, "Okay. Are they making me a new jacket?" She goes, "Well, they're making you a suit.
Uh-oh.
It's going to be revealed in the Supergirl episode of the crossover." And so instantly I was like, wait a minute. First of all, you're making me a super suit. And second of all, I'm going to be in the crossover?
Like, oh my goodness.
Oh, that's so good. And Crisis, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
You asked, I don't know how much you've seen of Arrow. Well, huge comic book geeks and huge Arrow geeks and just for my whole life. So I was a huge fan of the Crisis comic books and the whole storyline and the whole thing. So when I heard that was going to be the crossover, I was excited for sure. I just thought they did a brilliant job. Your storyline in Crisis and how it sets up everything, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, but how it sets up what's going to happen with you in the future, just brilliant. I thought the crossover was brilliant.
Oh, thank you. I was so grateful that they gave me so much to do in the crossover. I was just happy to be at the party and just be there to work with everyone. It's such a fun group of individuals, and just getting to know everybody a little better. I've known Tyler Hoechlin for a long time, and I've met a few other people before, like Katie Lotz shadowed as a director last year, so I got to see her and hang out with her a little bit, and I'd met Grant a few times. So, getting to know everyone more was so great. But then also, it's one of those moments that you have as an actor occasionally when you work on things that are sort of fantastical.
Right.
Where you're standing on set and you look around, you're standing in a superhero suit yourself, and you're looking around and there's a couple of Supermen and the Green Arrow and the Flash and Batwoman and
Sure.
The White Canary, and you're just kind of going, how is this my job?
Right?
How is this what I get to do for a living every day? It's bananas, and it's beyond. I'm just beyond grateful. But it's so fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm amongst so many people probably that are so jealous to stand on that with that. Like you said, everybody in costume, and you're literally straight out of the pages of a comic book. It's got to be pretty epic.
Yeah, the irony of it on this crossover in particular is the first, and I couldn't talk about this for a long time because it was such a spoiler, but my first day in the super suit and my first real day on set with everybody in their suits was the day we shot Steven's death scene in
Yes.
And so I get to set in my suit for the first time, and I'm so excited, and everybody else is in their suits, and then I go, oh, dang it, now I have to cry.
Yeah. This is not cool. Oh, man. So, yeah, I kind of want to talk about that because the whole season 7 arc, they set up this brilliant backstory for Mia. Mia Smoke, by the way. And you're raised by your mom in a cabin, and you're trained by Nisa Azghul, and you're like this. You have this whole history and everything, and then you find out in Crisis they're gonna wipe all that out. You're not gonna remember any of that yet, and your whole thing is gonna change, because of what Oliver does and what he tries to rebuild when he sacrifices himself. Talk about that a little bit. What was it like to have like this whole backstory, and you have this character that you know where she comes from, what she's about, how she's dealing with these people, JJ, and all the people in her life and everything, and then it's going to all flip and change. What was that like?
It was really interesting, actually, because we had spent so much time taking Mia from this really closed off, unemotional fighter and building her as a human being.
Right.
And it usually happens the opposite. With Clary, especially, it happened the opposite way. You have a human being, and she became a fighter. And then with Mia, you had a fighter, and she became a human being. And it's very interesting to kind of see that change and to have built everything up. And she had such, hang-ups with the abandonment and the resentment she had toward her father that she got to work through, and the relationship with her brother that she got to build, and everything that happened, getting established with Barry and with Sarah Lance,
right,
and all these characters that she got to form bonds with, and then to strip all of that away, it gave me a moment of pause, because I had to go, well, wait a minute. We've spent 2 years building this character. Let's not, we can't just take her away.
Exactly.
So then, in talking with the showrunners and the writers of the show, we really collaborated and found a way to find the Mia in the new Mia. Because she's still ultimately, yes, even though she was raised in a world where she's a socialite and
right,
she has had every privilege and a happy childhood with her brother and her mother, and really has not known any sorrow or loss or hardship in her life. She wasn't a fighter. She was still raised by Felicity.
Yep.
She's
exactly.
still the same cunning, smart, cutting girl
exactly.
that we know and love.
Yep.
She's just a little lost. She hasn't found her passion. She hasn't found that thing that lights the fire in her soul yet.
Right.
And she just is kind of floating and trying to figure out how to live in the shadow of her father and how to live up to his legacy, and what on earth can she do to do that.
Exactly. And I love that you use that terminology, live in the shadow of her father, because let's talk about the Backdoor pilot. Huge congratulations on Green Arrow and the Canaries, because highest rated episode of the season, non-crossover. So huge congrats on that.
Thank you.
Absolutely loved it. I and thanks to Cisco Martian Manhunter magic, you got some of those memories about Dad back and Crisis back. Spoilers, by the way, for anybody who's listening who hasn't watched it. Sorry. But you get those memories back. I thought you did a really fantastic job of what you just said. Here's this woman who's now kind of lost. She has this whole life that she remembers, but she also now has this past that she remembers that she's got to try to work into it. And what's going on. The whole JJ thing alone is like throwing her off. The cliffhanger right there. But the terminology that you said, standing, because there's literally at the end, you're in the shadow of your dad's giant statue, and you're like trying to, what am I going to do here?
Little visual storytelling there.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, that was really the fun of shooting the pilot and figuring out this new Mia, because we had old Mia. You had Mia 1.0,
right,
and then we had Mia 2.0, which is post-crisis Mia, and then you have Mia 3.0, which is this woman who has these two sets of memories, these two realities living in her head, both of which she's emotionally attached to.
Exactly.
And the fun of that then is figuring out, okay, well, how does she then interact with the world around her, and which set of instincts is going to take over depending on the situation.
Right, and you were conflicted that whole time. I mean, what was some of the terminology you were saying to, the Black Canaries? You were like, I don't even know if I remember how to fight. How I'm supposed to go out there and kick some ass? I don't even know if I can. And I thought that was brilliant. Another one of my favorite lines, though, and I think this comes from you in real life, I hope, because it seems so very much as like when you walk in and you're like, what, a socialite can have a brain, too. Like when you reference the Harvard thing, I just thought that was hilarious.
Oh, thanks. It actually was not my addition to the script, but I do think it's something that it's very important, because we have these stereotypes of the socialite character and this and that, and Mia doesn't fit into any stereotype, especially not at this point in her character development. But I think, the most fun with this is that Mia was very capable as a fighter and as a vigilante before. She could pretty much punch her way out of anything.
Right. But
she was a bit lacking when it dealt with social graces and personal relationships and, maybe handling things with tact as opposed to violence. But now we have this woman who was raised in the world of tact and social graces. And she has a full toolbox of how to handle people and how to handle Star City and access to everything in that world. And so it really just expands Mia's purview and gives her more of an emotional maturity that matches her fighting skills. So it makes her even more adept at taking care of the city that she loves so much.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, as a fan, I love hearing you talk. You can clearly tell your passion for the character. You have this deep understanding of the character, and I'm so excited. I would have to imagine, especially after the ratings of the episode, that the CW is going to greenlight this thing and you're going to get picked up to series. I think it's going to be brilliant. You're a great Green Arrow. Katie and Julianne are just awesome as the Canaries. I just think it's a brilliant cast, and I'm hoping for the very best. I hope we get this thing picked up and it goes for a long time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a lot of fun, and the Green Arrow has such a legacy to it, and I'm a huge fan of what Steven's done and of the Green Arrow as a character, and I think it's something really interesting because there is such a darkness to it, as well as a heroism, and it leaves me a lot to play with.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're all huge fans. I mean, so you're good to go in this podcast, and with our fan base, you're good to go. We're going to be backing you up the whole way.
Definitely.
Oh, thanks so much.
Of course. And we'd also like to talk a little bit about your charity work, because you support a lot of organizations like Girls Up, Stomp Out Bullying, Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, so many other things. Like, what's that like, just being a part of something that helps so many other people?
Well, it's that my passion for that, I would have to say, comes a lot from my family, given that a lot of them are in the health and medical and science industries. It's all about, what can you do to help other people? And with what I do and the way the world is today, where actors have also become advocates and through social media have been given a bit of a voice, I don't want to waste that. I have an opportunity to make a statement and to give voice and to give credence to things that matter that people might not know about, or the issues that go forgotten in the world. And I'd like to do everything I can to support those things. Grow Up for me is one that's really important because it's the UN Foundation's Young Women's Empowerment Organization.
Right.
And they do such fantastic work all over the world in solving health and education and opportunity issues for women all over the world. And what's so unique about Girl Up is that they provide platforms for girls in developed countries to help girls in developing countries. So not only are they making a difference and having a massive success rate in their initiatives, but they're also giving kids the opportunity to make a difference in the world at a young age. And I know that's something I always wanted to do as a kid. I always wanted to make a difference and really do something big, but I never knew how, growing up in Missouri, I could affect change across the world.
Right.
And they're giving kids that chance and also instilling those values in them that they can take into adulthood. And I just think that's so important.
Absolutely, and wisely chose you as an ambassador. So good to go for them. That's kudos to that. I think we need so many more people like you in the world who are willing to go out and do stuff like that, because it is needed. And for you to be in a position that you're in and do that is a wonderful thing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm following in the footsteps of many people that have done that before me. Another organization that I have gotten involved with that's sort of very close to my heart is the Big Slick, and it was started by Paul Rudd and David Koechner, Rob Riggle, Will Forte, Jason Sudeikis, Eric Stonestreet, all of whom are from Kansas City,
Fantastic,
where I'm from.
Right?
And it's it's to support the local children's hospital there, who, you know, do so many amazing things for families and don't charge if the families can't pay for care, and they're just really there to serve the community, and they do such incredible things. But, you know, I've been a part of this organization for the last few years, and last year we had our 10th anniversary, and when they totaled everything up, not only did we raise $2.5 million in that weekend.
Whoa, there you go.
Going to play with kids at the hospital, playing a softball game in the Major League Stadium, a big variety show and live auction in the 5,000-seat Sprint Center there. But over the last 10 years, they've raised over $10 million for this hospital.
Oh, wow.
And what the whole big event, it only lasts for a weekend, but they bring back friends and people they've worked with, and things from, you know, people from LA and New York in the industry that will volunteer their time to go to the middle of the country for a weekend and hang out with kids and play and be silly and do a variety show and just have fun to raise money for a good cause. So you really end up with this incredible amalgamation of entertainers who are just there to, you know, do something good for the world and have a good time and hang out with people that they really enjoy.
Absolutely.
And it's such an amazing environment, and I'm just trying to follow in their footsteps and continue this thing.
Oh, I got to tell you, if there was one word somebody asked me to describe you with, it would be passion. From talking about the shows you've been involved with, to education, to now the charity event, you have such passion in your voice when you speak of these things. It's amazing to see somebody like that have so much passion at a young age with so many different things in life. It's so refreshing to see.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I'm very busy, and I do so many different things, but I really am passionate about them all, and I give my time to the things that I think are really important and the things that I really care about, and I'm also a stubborn optimist, so that I think is also part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Positive vibes. It's always good
Exactly.
to be. So, what do you have coming up? What you got going on? You're going to be a part of the Stand, right?
Yes. I have a few other irons in the fire, but the Stand is the next thing that's coming up. We're shooting that right now, and I can't say much about it other than, you know, a lot of the cast has been released as to who's a part of it. And
yeah.
I'm a huge Stephen King fan, you know, almost if not maybe more so than I am a fan of other fandoms. It's among my, you know, top 5 fandoms, as it were. And I am just so thrilled to be a part of it, but also to be on set and see that everyone else is so into creating this world, and to going to the dark side and really seeing what we can make of it and how we can bring it to life in a really innovative and new and fun way, where it's such a rich world, and they're really giving us every resource creatively that we need to really maximize our opportunity and make a show that's going to be so special and so rich, and just it really bring the book to life in an amazing way.
Awesome. There's that passion again.
Exactly. I mean, that's just great to hear. To be so passionate about all the projects you like. But what we like to do at the end of every interview is, because like we said at the beginning, it's all about helping others break into the entertainment industry. So what advice would you give an actor, director, writer, anything like that, trying to break into the entertainment industry, and what pitfalls would you say to try to avoid?
I would give 2 main pieces of advice, and I think the first thing is make sure you really love it, and make sure that it's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, and it's the one thing that you want to do more than anything else, and the thing that you feel as though you have to do for the rest of your life. Because it's not always easy. You know, it looks like a glamorous life, and it looks, you know, always wonderful, and if you have that passion, it is. But, you know, there are times where you're covered in fake blood and sweat, and it's 4 a.m. and you're out in the cold in Canada.
Absolutely.
Or you maybe have heard, you know, 70 no's out of 80 auditions, or 80 no's out of 80 auditions, and it has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with how the industry works. And it's those times that, if you have the passion for it and the tenacity, and know that this is what you have to do with your life, that will get you through, and it will still be fun, even in the more in the downs of the up and down roller coaster that this is.
Absolutely.
But the other thing I would always say is, and then this is also kind of how the pitfalls to avoid, make sure you never lose that quality that makes you who you are, and makes you unique, and makes you different.
Yes.
Because, you know, this industry often tries to put people in boxes, and to put people into categories that, have been predetermined by what is quote unquote typical.
Right.
But the thing that makes art and passion and creativity are coloring outside the lines and finding those ways to stand out. And each person has something so unique that they can offer the world. And especially when you're doing something creative, you just can't lose that. And through that, you'll find the people that love that about you and that want to help you foster that, and that you can help them foster their special qualities, and then it becomes this really beautiful community where you can be there for each other no matter how things are going for anyone, good, bad, or indifferent.
Absolutely. Wow, fantastic advice. I think that's great advice. I think a lot of people are going to take that to heart and listen to that. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Where can people follow you? Because we want people to have more advice like that, and we want people to follow you. Tell them where they can find you on social media.
You can find me at cat_McNamara on Twitter, cat.McNamara on Instagram, and I think it's official Katherine McNamara on Facebook.
Awesome, and we will make sure to direct everybody there for sure. Listen, thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting with us. You have been an absolute gem. Really just one of the most passionate, exuberant, fun guests we've had.
Yeah.
It's just been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm actually really excited, too, because I'm a huge podcast nerd, and now I have another podcast to listen to.
Awesome. Yeah, go check it out. We've had a lot of fun with a lot of people, and you're just it just added to the list, and we couldn't be more happy that you are.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, you guys.
You too. Have a great one now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.